Hey guys, welcome back to J&M Sports Talk, and it's finally football time,
Yes.
week 1.
Finally, we waited so long for it. It's finally here.
Finally here. So we're going to be previewing week 1 matchups.
Mhm.
We're also going to be talking about our Heisman predictions.
Yep.
And some QB battles that finally came to be. So let's start with that.
Right? Yep.
So quarterback battles. Let's start with Florida Gators, who ended up winning the matchup.
As I predicted in the SEC preview show, no surprise, Philippe Franks gets to start for Florida. So Mullen has his QB. So now let's see what he can do with him. So I'm excited now that they actually have a guy there and they know who it's going to be, and see what Mullen does with him.
Yeah, so staying in the state of Florida, FSU, Francois was announced today. Francois beat out James Blackman for that starting job. So what do you think of that decision?
Well, to me, a guy should never lose his position due to injury. So he really just got his job back. He just took a little more work than his Blackman's improved, obviously, some in the offseason. So good for them. I think we both would admit that our predictions preseason were more with him out and the uncertainty of him. And with him being there, they should be able to at least make it to a bowl now. I stand firm more on that 6-6 to maybe 7-5 now. I'll give them instead of the 6-6, 5-7. So we'll see, because they still have a tough schedule, but it's good to have him with experience back over Blackman.
We'll see what FSU fans think about that bold prediction. All right, let's talk about another ACC team. Kelly Bryant wins the job for Clemson. A lot of people thought that Trevor Lawrence, the true freshman, was going to come in there and take that job. I still think that'll happen. I just think it'll happen probably in the middle of the season. But what do you think?
Well, I'll say anything's possible in today's college football, especially if we have a situation like he's banged up, like the Syracuse game last year, where all the guy needs is that little bit of window to get in there, and next thing you know, he's taking the job. So it'll be interesting to see how it forward. Will that build confidence that he won the job over him, or will he be more worried about him being behind his back and causing him to struggle more this year? We'll find out.
Right. Yeah. Texas, they settled on Sam Ellinger, who won the job in the middle of the season last year.
Right.
He took the reins. We really think that Texas will take that next step. And so if they're going to take that next step and compete for the Big 12, they're going to need Sam Ellinger to really compete at a high level.
Yeah, I agree. Some of that too is that was one of the problems last year, was the fact that they wouldn't make a decision on a quarterback. The fact that they've picked a guy and like it's your program, it's going to do a lot for them. Now, if they pick the right one, we'll find out. But at least now that they say this is our guy and giving him a chance to take the reins, I think it'll do a lot for them moving forward.
Yeah, LSU, they also decided on their quarterback, the Ohio State graduate transfer, Joe Burrow. We're really high on him. We think that he'll do well. Probably one of the best passers that LSU has had in quite some time there. They had 2 QBs that left the program a couple weeks ago. I think they kind of saw the writing on the wall there.
Yeah, for sure. And everything I've seen with this LSU team is it seems like all fall camp, especially, the team is really bought into Burrow, which is always good to see, and where that usually goes. I know the quarterback that he was competing against had some experience too with the team, but it's always good when you can tell that the team gets behind one guy, and it seems like that was the case at LSU.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's stay in the SEC. Texas A&M, they had a good QB battle. They probably, in my estimation, they probably have one of the deepest QB rosters in college football. They've got Kellen Mond and Nick Starkel. It's interesting, Kellen Mond, kind of the dual threat QB, wins in Jimbo Fisher's pro-style quarterback system, which I would have thought Nick Starkel would have been a better fit for that system, but they decided that Kellen Mond gets to start week 1. What do you think about that decision?
I agree. I mean, it's one of those things where we also have to keep in mind that, Jimbo Fisher is walking in, everyone has a clean slate. There's no depth chart. It doesn't matter who was the starter for 3 years even. It depends on how that coach feels about that guy when he meets them, sees the tape on them, practicing with them. There's a lot more of what does that coach see when they get there. Because obviously there was a problem there if there's a new coach too. Usually, in fact, if they have to go out and get another coach for whatever reason, something wasn't going great. I mean, there's a reason why Nick Saban, even Gus Malzahn, some of the coaches in the SEC that have been there a while are where they've been for a while because they've had success. So I think that's a good opportunity for him to move forward and being the guy with the new coach. And let's see how it works out. They have a tough situation being in the West, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, speaking of the West, how did Alabama's QB race shape out?
Nick Saban didn't make a decision. It seems like they're going to go with dual starters. Both Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts are both going to be the co-starters, and we'll see how that goes. Traditionally, when we've seen other teams do it, it hasn't worked out well. I don't think I've ever seen it really done by Nick Saban. Maybe in LSU a long time ago, but that was a while back. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles it, and how much of it is the fact that he's just going to give little packages possibly to Hurts and give Tua the reins. But what do you think about those two players?
Yeah, I think Tua's head and shoulders above. They would not have won the national championship last year if it had not been for Tua coming in there and giving them a boost. But, I mean, a lot of people underestimate what Jalen Hurts has done. I mean, he's only lost, one ball game as a starter in his tenure at Alabama over 2 seasons. So it's just a luxury for them to be able to have two guys that can play at a high level. But I like for Tua to take that job, and I think he could be a dark horse Heisman candidate, honestly. But still very young, very inexperienced.
Yeah, we'll find out more. That's one thing though that may be a good thing and a bad thing for him in Alabama. Is yes, he played great in that national title game, but that was only for a half and a little bit of overtime. So there's plenty of room for him to have had a good game and been one of those guys that going in had a little less pressure, being the fact that they're already down and he's just going out there trying to make plays. And now that he's the guy, what happens? Will he go in there and try to force things and be shown that he doesn't make good decisions? Or we'll find out. So.
Yeah, so we just talked about some guys that just won their starting jobs.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about some guys that are solidified starters, Heisman hopefuls. Yeah. So who do you like?
Looking to win something a little more.
Yeah, looking for a big trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were talking pre-show. There's a lot of guys we both like. Probably my favorite has got to be Bryce Love. A lot of people felt like he was the Heisman winner. Should have won it last year. So I really like him to be having another great year. And since I think sometimes the committee, those that are voting, when they feel like a guy maybe should have won it last year, they're more likely to give him to him next year.
Yeah.
So I like definitely he's probably a given that as long as he doesn't get hurt and he has a good year, he'll probably be going to New York. So.
Yeah, for sure. A couple other guys that we both like, Trace McSorley for Penn State, the senior quarterback. Really because of the Ohio State debacle here preseason, Penn State has a really good opportunity to win their division. They're in the same division as Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, but they get Ohio State at home. So McSorley really has a good opportunity. Another guy that we both like is Will Grier at West Virginia.
Yep.
What do you think about him?
Yeah, and it doesn't help that he's getting his favorite weapon back too, and Seals the fifth. And I like both of these guys too, especially quarterbacks. They're guys that could have left early last year too and stayed. So anytime you see a guy come back and want to be in college and all, you always want to root for them to do well and have a good year.
Right.
Unless they're playing your team. But other than that, you want them to have a good overall year and everything to work out for them. And if both of these players do, they'll definitely be in the talking to go to New York. But I'm going to give you 2 outside picks as well.
Okay.
First, you got Jonathan Taylor, running back of Wisconsin. You could toss it up with some other running backs, but he's definitely the premier running back at Wisconsin, and they love to run the ball. And he's probably one of the better running backs in the country, too. He's up there with Love, I would say, in skill.
Broke the freshman rushing record set by Adrian Peterson last year. So
yeah, he was just short of 2,000 yards. He was like 23, 33 yards, something like that. He was just off by. So I expect him to definitely hit 2,000 this year. Maybe, who knows, and get maybe 2,500. That would be crazy. But
Might win a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, go all out, kid. But another one, if Auburn does well, it's going to be a lot on Jarrett Stidham. I really like him, his composure at quarterback. If Auburn does really well behind that defense they have, a lot of times when teams do really well, their best player gets promoted, and Jarrett Stidham's definitely the guy. The name for Auburn's offense this year. So he would be the one I think would be up there in the conversation.
Yeah, he's been on a lot of preseason watch lists for
Mhm.
sure. You were talking about Jonathan Taylor, the running back at
Right.
Wisconsin. I like a guy, another sophomore running back in the Big
Mhm.
Ten, J.K. Dobbins. I think they're really breaking in a newer type quarterback at Ohio State. I like for him to continue the momentum he
Mhm.
had from last season. He broke the Ohio State freshman rushing record.
Right.
So he's another record breaker, but I think he has potential to have a good season.
Mhm.
And then one dark horse guy for me, Khalil Tate,
Mhm.
Arizona junior quarterback. I think Kevin Sumlin taking over there. I think his offense fits Khalil Tate very well.
Mhm.
You know, Johnny Manziel in Sumlin's system
Yeah.
did quite well,
Yeah, he did.
winning a Heisman Trophy. So Khalil Tate is a very similar guy, you know, very mobile. He's got a good arm. I look
Mhm.
for his passing to improve this season. I think he's been working on that
Mhm.
during the off season. So I like Khalil Tate. He put up some gaudy touchdown numbers last
Yep.
year in the middle of the season. So he's a guy to look out for.
Yeah, I really like that pick too. In fact, he's the reason why I like Arizona to win that division. He's definitely going to have some great opportunity against some of the defenses he sees in the Pac-12. So I really like that dark horse pick, Mark.
All right, so let's move on to picking some games.
Yes,
all right.
finally.
So let's start out season on Thursday night.
Yeah.
So Jonathan.
So there's something really cool that the NFL does that we're finally starting to do this year in college. Did you know? The NFL every year they start the season off with the Super Bowl champs, and this year we get to start the season off with the defending national champs.
So Alabama, they're playing on Thursday night.
No, Central Florida's traveling up to UConn.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right.
For those of you that didn't know, the NCAA updated their stats from last year, and since the way the NCAA does things, even with the playoff committee now, they put in all national championships that are won based on polls. So it's officially in the rule book now. Central Florida's national champs. So go Knights, and I guess they should beat UConn.
Yeah, they do face UConn.
Yeah.
It is on the road. I
Yeah.
don't know. That might be a tough one.
Yeah, but so they're officially the debate can rest, I guess. How do you feel about it? But
Yeah, we both like UCF in that
Mhm.
game. You know, you mentioned before the show about Mackenzie Milton, the
Mhm.
quarterback there. We really like him. We think he
Mhm.
could have a good season, possible dark horse Heisman
Mhm.
candidate there. Northwestern and Purdue. That's a Big Ten opening matchup there. How do you see that one
you
going?
know what? This is going to be one of the more interesting picks of the night, just because of the fact that there's a lot of people that feel very highly about both these teams and very low about them as well. These are the two that everyone's trying to debate on who's going to be that second or third team in that division race. But because of that, I like Northwestern. I think last year they're returning a lot of guys, and the fact that they had those close games going to overtime. I think the fact they won those games kind of like solidified, and they got something going there. Northwestern they've had for several years, but I think this is going to be their year. They're really going to make a splash in the Big Ten. I don't think they're going to win it, but I think they're going to be right up there with the big boys at the end of the year. So I like Northwestern in this one.
Yeah, that's a good pick. This was a tough game for me to pick. Both teams seem pretty evenly matched, but I'm going to go with Purdue in this one. I like Jeff Brahms, a quarterback, or he's a quarterback coach, but he's the head coach there. I think their offense at Purdue will improve. So I'm going to go with Purdue. They're at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we mentioned Northwestern. They had a lot of close calls. This could be another close game. Got to give the edge to Purdue right now. All right, there's a Friday game, San Diego State and Stanford. We mentioned Bryce Love earlier.
Yeah, and this is one that's going to be interesting because it'll be week one. You know, sometimes guys aren't always at their best week one, but
Right.
I think the big question for this one is San Diego State. Are they going to have another running back? It seems like every other year they have to replace the best running back they ever had, and yet they do it. And it seems like the guys get smaller too, if you notice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, well, do they have a running back in place, and will he be able to take over the reins this year? All that being said, I still don't think they're going to beat Stanford. I really like the Stanford team, and they're going to have a really good year. And I don't think it's going to be too close. But it should be a fun first half, definitely, to watch. San Diego State, especially get running the ball. They'll move the clock. So I think it'll be a fun game to watch on that Friday night.
Yeah, it could be a quick game with both running games.
For sure.
I like Stanford in this one too. It's hard to go against Bryce Love.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to Saturday. Quite a few
Okay.
games on Saturday to watch.
Mhm.
So let's start out Ole Miss, Texas Tech. That game's being played in Houston. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, I really like this Texas Tech in their projection as far as things. They had a decent year last year. I think it could have been a lot better record wise for them, but they played some good games, and they're making the move in the right effort. But with the team they have coming in, I just like this Ole Miss team better. They're definitely going to be defensively good. They're officially now the Land Sharks. They got a mascot now, so they're really going to be hyped on defense. But I really like them. I have a few questions offensively, but besides, just of course we know about the quarterback, and they have one of the best receivers in the SEC, possibly too, Brown. But other than those two, there's still some questions there. Who's going to be the running back? So, but I still like Ole Miss in this one.
Yeah, Jordan Tamu, the
Mhm.
senior quarterback, Ole Miss, he was awarded the starting position. I really like the Ole Miss receivers. They're big, physical guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be able to match up well with Texas Tech's defense. Matt Luke, he really energized that program last year. That kind of had a black eye going into the season. So I think Ole Miss is going to win this game. It's a neutral site deal. Texas Tech, I think they do have a good team, but I'm gonna pick Ole Miss in this one. All right, let's talk about Washington and Auburn. That's another neutral site game being played in Atlanta.
Mhm.
How do you see that one going?
Well, for viewers watching, it's going to be no surprise. I'm picking Auburn. I'll just go ahead and say it, get that out of the way.
Homer.
But for those of you that watch the preseason show, the reason why I'm picking Auburn
Yes, there's a
is
reason.
I really feel like with Auburn, if there's one thing you can count on, is they're going to be able to run the ball. No matter who it is at running back, they're going to move the ball on the ground.
Young
They've
offensive
improved.
line.
Yeah, even so, I like what I'm hearing out of fall camp with this O line. I listened to an interview this morning with Stidham, and he's really high on the offensive line, which I'd hope he'd be. He's on national TV, but still. But I really like Washington. I like Browning, of course. He's a veteran in the college football. Of course, like Gaskins. And their defense, they've got a great secondary, which I think will cause problems with Auburn moving the ball out in the air. But the problem I have with Washington is that their front line on their defensive side of the ball. They've just got too many questions. They're replacing a lot of talent there that I just think they're going to struggle against, even if it's a young line, but it's still a very good SEC potential line against them. So I think that's where the game's going to be won for Auburn, is going to be on the ground, because I'd still count on Auburn finding a running back. There's too much talent there, even if it's inexperienced.
Yeah, see, I'm going to go with Washington in this game, and my reasoning is because of the experience that they have. You know, they were one of the better defenses in college football last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talk about Jake Browning at quarterback. You talk about Gaskins at running back, that backfield, and just the experience. And I think ball security is going to be huge in this game. So I'm going to go with Washington. I think it's going to be a close game, but just the inexperience at offensive line and running back for Auburn, which is what they like to do. They like to set it up by running the football, the whole offense. That's why I'm going to go with Washington in this game. I do think it's going to be a very close game. Should be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, do you want to give a score on that one?
I don't want to, but suppose I will. I think it'll be a shootout. I think it'll be 31-24 is what I would go.
See, I'm not going to quite go that high, because I do like both defenses. I'm not trying to say I think their D-line is trash, anything like that. I just think that you have too many questions there. That's where they're going to struggle. I'm looking at more Auburn 24-17. So I think it's going to be a
Okay.
lower scoring game. I do like both offenses and I like both defenses. I just think that's where the biggest mismatch is Auburn's run game against their run defense. So
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one shakes out.
yep.
All right, let's go to another neutral site game, Tennessee and West Virginia. This one should be a fun matchup too.
I'm hoping it is. There's hopes there. I guess as the SEC homer that I really hope Jeremy Pruitt's going to walk into Tennessee. He's going to tie everything up in a nice little bow, as programs should be, and he's going to bring a lot more discipline there for sure. And they've got some talent there, but this West Virginia offense is just so good. It's really hard for me to pick against them, even if it's against the SEC defense. I think Tennessee is going to obviously show they've made improvement, but I don't think it's going to be enough. We talked about Will Greer already as a Heisman candidate.
Right.
I don't see him not being one against Tennessee. So I like them to win pretty big.
I like what Pruitt's done, especially recruiting wise there at Tennessee, and I think it could be a transition like we saw with Kirby Smart at Georgia coming over from Alabama. But I mean, can't pick against West Virginia in this game.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee is going to surprise with their defense and how well they'll defend West Virginia, but I like for West Virginia to win this one.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about one of the marquee matchups. College Game Day is going to be there.
Yeah.
Michigan traveling to South Bend to face Notre Dame in a rivalry game in Week 1. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to side with the Irish here being at home and some of the uncertainty about some of the Michigan players, and Michigan's not really lived up to the potential that they've had the last few years.
Yeah.
But I think this is the year that they finally live up to expectations. I talked about the preseason. I like this Michigan team to do really well, and I like it to start here. Adding Shea Patterson in at quarterback, I think that's definitely an upgrade from the last few years, and their defense has been there. It's just they hadn't had the offense to move the ball. I think Shea Patterson's going to actually be that guy to step in and take reins of that offense and show what you expected for so long to be there at offense for Michigan. So I like Michigan winning this one.
Yeah, for me, I really like Wimbush, the Notre Dame quarterback. I think he's got a lot of experience being at home, hostile environment. And really, for me, I like Shea Patterson. I think he has a good skill set. I think he'll be able to, when things break down, he'll be able to get outside the pocket and run around. But I just don't think the Michigan system, unless they've changed their offense to fit his skill set, I don't think it's a great fit for him. And he doesn't really have the experience that a Wimbush does. Sure, he did play at Ole Miss, but he just doesn't have a lot of film under him. So for that reason, I'm going Notre Dame at home. I think they'll be able to get that win. I do think that this is going to be a really competitive game, really close game. But I like Notre Dame.
Okay.
All right,
Fair
Louisville and Alabama, the true national champions of the college football playoff, facing off in Orlando, another neutral site game. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, this one Louisville's just lost too much for us. I really don't know even what team we're gonna see out of Louisville. And we didn't really speak highly of them in the preseason just because there's so many unknowns. Starting with the fact they're having to replace one of the better quarterbacks in the country last year, in the last few years, in Lamar Jackson. So even with all those questions, there's no way I can pick them to beat Alabama. I mean, Alabama has just been so consistent for so long. What we know out of Alabama, it would be hard for us to say Louisville would win even with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So the fact that he's not there and there's so many unknowns, I just can't trust them enough to pick an upset like this early in the year too.
Yeah, that would be a fun matchup if Lamar Jackson was still there. And Louisville, it'll be interesting to see how they're different, how their offense is different without Lamar Jackson. There was a lot of times where the play broke down and Lamar would just take off 60 yards for a touchdown. So it'll be interesting to see Bobby Petrino, and how, he's a quarterback guru. He's an offensive guy. I think they'll be okay on offense, but Week 1 against Alabama, it's hard for me to pick against them.
Yeah, and again, it's the fact too. Nothing against them. It's just the fact there's too many unknowns to trust. Okay, they can beat anyone right now, let alone Alabama, who's everyone's consensus #1 team again this year. But we'll see about that.
All right, so that ends the Saturday slate. We've got a
Mhm.
Sunday game and a Monday night game
Yep.
in college football week 1. So let's talk about that Sunday game. Another neutral site game.
Right.
In Jerry's world, we've got Miami and LSU. We've talked about this one in some of our preseason shows, but
Yep.
Jonathan, give our viewers a pick here.
With this one, I really like this Miami team. You know, I like their returning quarterback Rozier. I like their defense. I don't think last year was a fluke when they were doing as well they did at one point. I really like them to do well in the ACC again this year. But with that being said, I just don't like this matchup. I think it's gonna be really tough for them to have to face LSU with Joe Burrow. We're talking about maybe the best quarterback they've had in a long time. And then on top of that, LSU's defense, that we know is going to be good. With that, I just think it's going to be too much for Miami, especially for a week 1 game. Again, that's nothing against Miami. I just think it's just a bad matchup for them. And I really think part of why they're going to have a good year is because they're going to get thumped here. There's a saying that teams get the best between week 1 and week 2. They make the biggest strides. I think it's going to take this loss to really galvanize them, trying to wake them up. And, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for either team or any of these teams playing these big neutral site games, except for maybe Alabama, to drop an opener on the neutral site against some of these teams that they're going out and playing week 1, because they have all season to make up for it. It's not like it's like a week 11 loss to whoever. It's not going to be in the committee's mind as much. Yes, they're going to have a lot of work to do after, but I think this is going to be one of those cases where this is going to be exactly what Miami needs, and it'd be better for them even to lose than to win, too, because it's going to make them better moving forward.
Yeah, I'm actually picking Miami in this game.
Mm-hmm.
The turnover chain gang returns for another season.
Right.
They return a lot of good guys on defense. Also, Miami, I like the quarterback. I like the experience of Rozier. He's got a whole year under his belt. And some of those playmakers that are down in South Florida, I look for them to win this game. Also, LSU, I think they have a great defense. I think this is going to be kind of a defensive battle, real close game. But I'm going to pick Miami in week 1 against LSU. Like you said, it's not the end of the world for LSU. They still have a great schedule. They could certainly compete in the SEC West.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the finishing game, the cap there on Monday, Virginia Tech and Florida State. ACC matchup to start week 1. That's a tough one.
Yep.
How do you see that one going?
Well, I'm sure Florida State fans are glad it's not Miami week 1 like it was some of those years. At least it's but it's Virginia Tech, who I think we're both really high on this year in the ACC. I really like Jackson again. I think they're making strides defensively as well this year. And even with Francois being back, I just think Virginia Tech's a much better team. I think Jackson getting experience last year going on some of the venues that he's been in will benefit him going into Doak. So I still like Virginia Tech, but I will say it's going to be a lot closer game now than it was a week ago, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have a good feeling about FSU. Better feeling than I did a few weeks ago. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but Cam Akers, the sophomore running back from FSU, he really came on towards the end of last season, had a good freshman year. So I like FSU. I think I'm going to pick FSU in this game. Very interested to see the quarterback matchup. Francois versus Jackson. Jackson being his second year, I think he'll make a good jump. But just being at home, solid running game of FSU. Willie Taggart taking the helm, possibly bringing some good energy in there. I like FSU week 1.
I agree. I understand your pick. Definitely Cam Akers. If they didn't slow him down early in the year and everything else going on, it seemed like they kind of forgot about him a little bit early in the year with trying to figure out quarterback Brayson Francois. He was by the end of the year playing just as good, if not better than Jonathan Taylor and Dobbins, who we mentioned as possible Heisman guys, even because they played so well last year. So I like that pick. but I still like Virginia Tech just a little bit better. Now it's like that margin's closer, but I still like them.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to tune into the games on Saturday.
Yep.
We'll recap next week on J&M Sports Talk. Be sure to check out the after show where we're going to be talking about the mess at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Jonathan and I will comment on that and how we see that playing out.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see you guys next week.
Later, guys.